Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live show. We're going to be doing a preview of the big one this weekend. So make sure you guys are liking the video, subscribing to the channel. And my special guest for today is James B, who's back on the channel after, I don't know, when's the last time we spoke? I don't know. It's been a while, but
I think. Yeah.
we need a little catch up. We have
We
loads to
do.
talk about. We definitely haven't spoken since Dubai. I know we haven't.
Yeah.
We
No, you're
haven't.
right.
So we need to
They'll
chat
call
about
us all
that.
negative. They'll call us negative. They'll say we only meet up when we've got to complain about things. Things
Well,
have been
listen,
great.
I
Yeah.
I feel like we always talk about positive things. I feel like we do. It's just like when we're not playing good, it's hard to talk about positive stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but let's go ahead and let's jump in. So I think pre-Dubai, I'm pretty sure that we were kind of like concerned. Not like distressed, but concerned. Post Dubai, everything is great. We're winning all these games. We've gone through to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. I got to ask you about a
Yeah.
couple of players that probably the feeling on them amongst the fan base has kind of changed over the last couple of maybe months or so. Let's start off with Kai Havertz.
I
I
always
think
rated him. What are you talking about? I've always loved him. We should have paid
well,
80.
well, listen, I mean, I feel like initially, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but did you always feel like he was gonna be a striker option for us or a midfield option? Because I thought more midfield than striker, but as of lately, I feel like he's been a better striker option. What was your feeling at the beginning?
I felt his profile and his kind of like more a languid approach to the game suited a striker more. But like I
Mhm.
never looked at him and went, "Oh, that's our future number 9." so
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
I want to make that clear. I didn't see a role in the team for him when we were doing all the breakdowns and everyone was trying to, the rumors originally emerged and everyone's trying to, play 5D chess and figure out where the hell he's going to play. I even asked the question whether he was going to be out on the right for us, a little bit like Grealish plays on the left, just because I was like, he's not anything like Granit Xhaka, and he's not going to do what Jesus does. So maybe out wide, but yeah, was massively wrong about that. But up front, I just always felt his best impacts came up front, and we saw a really good like early indication of what he could do in that role in the Community Shield. And
Yeah.
when he just wasn't doing it in midfield, and this is the one thing about Arsenal fans, like I'm not going to let anyone change my mind of what I felt about his midfield performances. Not that they were all bad. Luton in midfield, I thought he did well. Anfield, I thought he did okay. But he never looked a midfielder to me. I don't think Arteta's done with this experiment. I will say,
I don't either.
I don't think he's fully shot that one. But I think
Mhm,
there's yeah, I think he's understanding the balance right now requires him up front, if anywhere.
mhm.
What about you? You were saying you were more midfield than striker before.
Well, I always felt like he was gonna play in midfield, because everybody was saying he was gonna play in midfield, so I was like, "Why do I need to believe anything different?"
And he
And
was
he
on the
started
website as a midfielder, and Arteta said, "Oh, Granit Xhaka, no one
mhm.
thought he could do this role before." So yeah,
Yeah, I was just kind of like, "Okay, he's gonna play in midfield," and I do think that, like, not having Timber, Partey maybe made it a little awkward because it's
yeah.
like he's not when he's playing in the midfield, he's not playing as a midfielder. He's not getting involved in build up as much. Like it's just a different vibe altogether. And so like you said, I don't think the experiment is quite done, but I have been excited about how he's performed as a striker, which is still not like a traditional striker. He's still doing things that like are not striker-ish, but and he's not clinical, but it also makes me excited about what Arsenal could look like with a striker. Because I think out of like the options that play there, he probably represents the most like he'll actually be in the spots that a striker would be in. He runs beyond the back line. He, runs the channels. So it's an exciting time and like I'm happy about his progression because for a minute it was like
Mm.
I'm not sure if this is going to work out. I feel like everybody felt like that, right?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
exciting to see
I
his progression.
I saw people who really defended Kai Havertz, they got to a point where they were like, "That is it. I'm done with this guy." Like there were people who got to that, even the ones who were really kind of defending the signing at first. You know, his kind of his kind of style is very it's weird. He's in the wars. He works hard. There's no question
Mhm.
about that. I've actually, the one thing I'll give myself credit for, I've always defended Havertz for his work rate. I've never felt this guy shirks responsibility. I felt he lacked conviction. Those are two different things. People see that, he might do something with a little less conviction and think, oh, he's not trying. No, I think he is trying. I think that's just kind of his way and he needed confidence. The one thing about his style, though, and his general demeanor is that kind of, not in Italy, in England, they use the word cute, like, cute, as in cute to say like something that's a little bit subtle and a little bit like, I don't really think there's a good word for it, but he does a lot of like very subtle things, like a
Yeah.
slight touch on the ball, like a little like drop of the shoulder, and everything's always quite at his own pace. I think you can work with that up front. I don't think you can work with that in any other area of the pitch. I think in midfield, certainly in more the modern day midfielder, even tens have had to either become robust or go out on the wing because
Right.
you're just asked to do more. And I think that kind of more languid nature when you're up front, and it is about defender steaming at you. Can you just get a touch on it? And actually, everyone is running towards the penalty area, but you hang back a little bit and wait for the cutback, and you're not steaming at the front post. Like, I think those kind of things have suited Kai Havertz's game a little more. Um,
Yeah.
and when I watch him up front, I don't get this sense of like, oh, you're not involved, you're annoying me, take control. I'm actually more patient with him. I'm like, yeah, the game hasn't got to you yet, but it will because you're a striker and that can happen. So I've liked him. He's made good runs off the ball that Jorginho's found him with. He could have scored a few goals against Brentford and one against, I think,
Porto.
Newcastle, when he made runs in behind. Like, those are good chances.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he's getting into those areas. So for me, his future's as a striker.
Mm. That's interesting because, yeah, what does that say? Like, if we do go out there and get a striker, what does that say about Gabriel Jesus? Like, there's a lot of moving
Yeah.
parts here, which is super exciting because I agree with you. I do think that he'll play in the striker role for Arsenal, like moving forward, even if we do bring in somebody, which I think we will. Um, Raya, old Raya. Um, I'm so like I'm just happy. Like
Yeah.
I'm just
Same.
tired of talking about Raya, but um obviously he's done well post Dubai. What do you think has been like the biggest difference between his performances pre-Dubai and post Dubai?
Good question. You know what I would say about Raya? I still don't think we've seen him in a like tricky shot stopping situation.
Mm,
Like, we have not got our, stuff together. I was going to use another word. And he is having to, you know, pull us through it. I think Ramsdale had a lot of moments like that. But I also think I remember this quote from Arteta where he said, Raya prevents the things you might not think are happening, but they don't happen because he gets ahead of it. He's proactive, he's not reactive. So we might never know what kind of, intense shot stopping ability he's got, because his job is to claim the cross before he's got to make the save that the striker gets his head onto. And it's little
mm,
things like that that I think make a big difference. I think, when people talk about distribution as well, a lot of we always put things down, like footballers' attributes, like an ability to pass. We always put that down to how well can you actually execute getting the ball from here to there, whether there's two people in the way, whatever it might be. But
mm.
actually, I think those attributes are also based on decision making and when to use them. Raya, I do think, has a really good like knowledge of, I need to slow the game down. I'll caught the ball, I need to slow the game down. Oh no, Jesus is on the run. I'm going to find him immediately. We're going to play
Yep.
out the back here because we need to invite the press. No, we're going to go long because we're suffocated. And we always think, well, Arteta will tell them, but he can't coach every moment of every game. He can't.
Mm,
So I think decision making is part of that. And then of course against Porto, he had his big night where I felt a lot of players, and look, we reflect on that as a great night. Of course we did, for obvious reasons. I think, for being harsh, it wasn't a great night for a lot of players in terms of performance and getting
I
to the
agree.
levels they've been showing in the games before.
Mhm,
And Raya, along with Kiwior and Havertz and Erdegaard, sorry, those are my four. They were the
mhm.
four out of the 15, maybe 15 players involved that got to that level and showed a calmness. And I think like we really saw his value that night, not just because of the penalty saves. I'd have given him a lot of praise for performance, even if we went out of the shootout. He just was a really calming influence on the team.
I thought he was really good, yeah, throughout the game, and I agree that we haven't seen him in the back against the wall situation that we've seen with Ramsdale, but like against Brentford, it was kind of like the first time when we played against Brentford and Ramsdale was in the goal, where I felt like the opposition was getting more chances than before. And I just wonder if it is just like
Yeah.
something where because you go long more, you create more 50-50s. They win some of those. And Brentford are the kings of 50-50s. They love that Wissa and Tony nonsense. And so it was working out for them. And then Ramsdale can make the save. And then we're like, yeah, but he saved us. And it's like, yeah, but he encouraged those moments by
Yeah.
not being calm and collecting the ball and then finding his teammate. And he went long a lot more than Raya does, you know. So
Yeah.
it's subtle things. I agree with most people that say that it's not like this massive up. It's not the difference between Runnerson and Allison. Like
Yeah.
it's not that big. But there is a difference and some of it is
Mhm.
more stylistic than quality, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So
Yeah.
but the stylistic changes I do think make us a lot better.
I think
Um
you're spot on. And sorry to
yeah.
cut you, but I thought you were so right about that Brentford game. I was like, why do we look a little bit like we're not handling this occasion well? And that was the first kind of 20 minutes, I think, where it just felt like it's also you see, right? This is Mikel Arteta's insanity, right? In terms of standards. He got to a point where Sky Sports was showing us West Ham haven't completed a pass into their
Yep.
penalty area. We got to 70 minutes. They still haven't completed one pass into the Arsenal penalty area. So that
Exactly.
was like this level of control and like the ball is exactly where we want it to be at all times. Man, I was watching the Brentford game and I was going, they've just passed the entire area 5 times. And I'm like, so they didn't do anything, but like that's just like what this
Mhm.
this maniac has got us thinking about. Like, and I wonder, look, Brentford might just have been better than West Ham on the day. In fact, they definitely were. Um,
Yeah.
we might have been for the first time showing some pressure, the chance
Yeah.
to go top of the league, and actually maybe we've faltered under that a little bit. But I do wonder whether it was something to do with Ramsdale, and that's not his fault. Or maybe it
Yeah,
is his fault. But like,
it's not like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, it's really more stylistic, I think,
yeah, I
than
agree.
anything else, and I mean, yeah, like, you can imagine that he was probably nervous, and then he makes the mistake, and Wissa scores, blah, 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 but that's neither here nor there because it's just like that's the game. You're gonna have to play with players that haven't been there or don't play the same, and you just have to deal with it. Like I think the whole beginning of the season was basically figuring out how to deal with the stylistic changes between
Mhm.
Partey and Xhaka and changing that over to Havertz and Rice, which is
Yeah,
huge, massive,
I
absolutely
agree.
massive. So yeah, here we are. Kiwior, last one that I feel like maybe the feeling on him has changed, after
Yeah.
Fulham, it was like dead man walking, he's gone,
Yeah.
he's finished. Now it's like, can you drop him? Can you like, are we just playing so much better because he's back there? Is it just, what is it? So as somebody that's always thought that Kivior is a good player, but wasn't quite sure if he was gonna get his opportunity, I don't know. I'm excited. What do you think about
Mm.
Kiwior and like what has been the difference
Yeah.
for him?
So let me put this with the three players. Kai Havertz, I never liked the signing, and now I'm starting to genuinely.
Yeah.
Raya, I liked the signing, but I was unsure about it. I stopped liking the signing because I saw no improvements. Now I really like the signing.
Mhm.
Kivior, I've actually always liked the signing. Even when against Fulham, he didn't invert so well. Well, there was two things about that. Firstly, I thought we had a lot of problems beyond just Kivior doesn't look like Zinchenko in that role. I thought there were a lot of problems with that game, and Kivior didn't do too badly, but it wasn't like I was watching the game going, "Oh, Zinchenko's in this, we're winning," or 6-0. So there were other
Mhm.
problems. Um, I just think for anyone who's like been like following or just watching anything I've been on recently, I've said this 1,000 times. I'm so sorry to continuously repeat myself, but I really want to know what you think of this, Chess. I think Raya, Kivior, and Havertz in place of Ramsdale, Zinchenko, Jesus. All 6 players I mentioned, I rate, but the 3 that aren't now in the team in those positions, I rate massively. I think they're really good players. But I feel like the ones that are in their place right now have a cooler temperament. They've got a slightly colder demeanor and a slightly more like, I've got a job to do kind of approach to the game. Now,
Yeah.
it could be confirmation bias. It could just be we've heard so many times that these players are emotional and suddenly we win games or suddenly we're not. It could just be that. But I watched Kiwior in the Porto game, Raya as well, Havertz, and just like how they've all done in this run. And even when they're not playing that great, they don't look particularly phased. They don't look too high. They don't look too low. They just look like they're there to do a job. And I think at times last year we absolutely rode the wave. But some of the stuff Gary Neville said, like there was a point to it. I think he misunderstood Gary Neville when he was talking about us being too emotional. I think
Mhm.
he overlooked the fact that that was very much what was fueling us into a title race. And you need a bit of that. But I feel like Kiwior for sure has come in, and he's not as stellar on the ball as Zinchenko, but he doesn't have to be. We flip the dynamics. White's inverting a little bit more, but even he's not inverting that much. We're not already playing as much with an inverted fullback. They're sort of interchanging all of them. And
Yeah.
Kiwior's just looking really steady and doing what he has to do from a pressing perspective, from a shape perspective, and in possession, he's keeping it nice and safe. And he's defending well. And like sometimes that's a good enough platform. Like once upon a time, 4-4-2 used to win you titles, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes the basics work. And I think he's doing the basics really, really well.
Yeah. I agree about the temperament thing. It could just be like you said, confirmation bias, but
Mm,
something that, you know, always stood out to me about like Gabriel Jesus in particular is always wanted him at the club. I think he's a fantastic player. And I had to say, like, who's a better player right now? I would say Jesus is better than Kai. Um, but I don't think we always get to see the best of Jesus because he's so emotional. Sometimes he gets very wrapped up in the battle with the center back. Sometimes he's just too fired up. Sometimes he gets taken out of, whatever his mindset because he misses a big chance. And I think you're right, like, everything about those signings is, like, just calming the temperature down. Because like, as if you have Ramsdale and Jesus and Zinchenko in your team, if they're playing well, that's some of the best football that you'll see Arsenal play, but if
totally
they're
agree.
not playing good, woo!
Mhm.
So maybe Arteta feels like solid 80% all the time versus, sometimes getting 100% from those other players, but then other times dropping down to 50, and that
Yeah.
makes sense, because
I think
Arteta wants to take away, like, I feel like the unpredictability of what he's gonna get from his team.
I agree. I think that's true of Jorginho and Partey too. I think when Partey's at his best, the shouts for him being the best six in the league, like they were fair debates last season.
Yeah,
His ability to turn past two players, open the pitch up. He can thread the ball through an eye of a needle. He can score from distance. He can impact Arsenal in all three areas of the pitch. Attacking, defensive, middle third. I'm a massive Thomas Partey fan, but when he falls off a cliff, my word, do his performances drop. Like at
yeah,
the Etihad last year, he was lost in the game. He was lost. But I've also seen him boss City. I've also seen him come up against Rodri in that same midfield and be the guy. And you're like, wow, this is why we signed him.
yeah,
Jorginho, I don't think will ever play as well against City as Partey did in that. The 2-1 defeat when Rodri scored late. Partey was
yeah,
immense in that game. And
yeah,
Jorginho, don't get me wrong, like to be fair, against Liverpool at home, people might say he was just as good. Maybe he was. But my point is, I don't
mhm,
know if Jorginho's level falls below like what Partey's did when it got really quite bad for him at times last season. And
yeah,
some people might go, James, that's so short term thinking because there was a time where Jorginho's flaws, you can get away from him, the lack of pace and lack of physicality. But that's slightly different. That's a structural issue as well. If De Bruyne is sprinting past Jorginho at any point on the weekend, I'm going, our lines are they're too far apart. Our defensive line and our midfield are totally stretched and whatever. That's not to say it's not on Jorginho to a degree, but that for me would be structure as well. Jorginho is very good at knowing where to place himself, how to look after areas of the pitch, how to keep things neat and tidy. And I think you're right. It might be, come this Sunday, it might be, well, I could play Partey because he might have the game of his life and he might run that midfield. But Jorginho could run it, but I also just depend on him a little bit more to just give me, I need a 6 out of 10. I need nothing silly. I need things to be really sensible and I need that experience. I think Jorginho might bring that. I don't know if I've maybe done too much with that point, but I do
I know
think
what
there's
you
something
mean.
about Jorginho that's a little bit more trustworthy in terms of like getting to a
Yeah,
certain level of performance.
Yeah, I think, and that's the thing. It's like I feel like that's the biggest point is just like you know what you're gonna get, and it just may not sparkle as much as some of those other players at their top, but you just know you're gonna get a certain level, and we're not gonna drop below a certain level. And a lot of last season was super high highs and some real lows, where I think this season has been more steady due to those players. So yeah,
Mm.
I totally get that. Kind of going into the conversation about the Etihad, I saw this tweet today from Mo Arsenal, and they were like, June 2020, we lost 3-0. Luis was sent off. Mustafi and Mari center back duo. October 2020, 1-0. Ceballos, Willian, Pepe in the starting 11.
Yeah.
August 2021, 5-0. Xhaka sent off. You remember that one? That was horrendous. And then last season, 4-1, holding at center back, Partey disaster clash, just all this kind of stuff. Um, and Sunday is the first time we aren't handicapped. Um, Hoping that, obviously Saka, Martinelli, and Gabrielle are fit. Do you think this is going to be the first time that we'll go to the Etihad without feeling like we're severely weakened, especially at the back? Because it's usually where the back line is not
Yeah.
our best back line when we go there.
So shout out to Mo because he's bloody spot on with all the information he gets. To be fair to him,
Yeah.
and while I'm not one to sort of venture into the whole ITK stuff, like yeah, he's always been very good. Him and Team News and Tick. So yeah, big up to them because we always want to know things, and then we always slate people when they bring things we don't want to hear or they get things wrong.
Yep.
But actually, we want to know things, and they, he's been bringing the right things. So anyway, I just wanted to quickly say that. On the actual on the post and what he said. I think the reason I slightly disagree is I look back at last season's team and there's only Saliba out, like Ramsdale, White, Holding, Gabriel, Zinchenko. So Saliba would play. Erdegaard, Partey, Xhaka is our best midfield three. Saka, Jesus, Martinelli. Like the problem was that Holding is so far from William Saliba. I'm not even talking quality wise, I'm talking profile. Like you could have someone who's maybe not as good on the ball, but at least they're physical and is going to give Haaland a battle. I've seen Haaland come up against some wash centre backs, but you know what? What they needed to do on that day, they've got 15 years experience doing it. And Rob
Mhm.
Holding, I just felt was like the worst option. He's not as good playing out the back, so they weren't going to, well, they were going to
Mhm.
press with reasonable success. He was never going to win the one-on-one battle with Haaland. He wasn't going to beat him in a sprint race, so we couldn't play a high compressed line. There's just a million
Mhm.
reasons why Rob Holding was the last person who should be using that game. And then I think Arteta learned from it pretty quickly because you reflect on it. And he could have played Kiwior at centre back. He could have played White centre back with Partey right back and brought Jorginho in. So a lot of stuff he could have done. He didn't have to go that way. And a lot of fans said that at the time. So is this the most ready we are? um, Yeah, probably. It's the best Arsenal team that are going. Even if Martinelli's not fit, it's definitely the best Arsenal team that are going because if we do have one or two injuries, if it comes out tomorrow, name two random players that are injured. Like I'd say, okay, then I can name two that should come in. If Erdegaard and Saliba are out for Sunday, that is a massive blow. But I'd like
Mhm.
to think we can bring in Tomiyasu and Vieira or Smith Rowe, and there is some quality there we can genuinely depend on. And they'd be a drop, they'd be a dip, but I think this is the best shape the squad's going in.
You know what? Like, I agree with you, like so, yeah, Holding was the only one missing, but I feel like the main issue was, like, the mental collapse of not having one of your better players back there. I feel
Yeah, that's true.
like, one of the things I always said was, like, if that was the Invincibles and they had dropped Holding into that team, they still woulda won. They woulda figured out a way because they were already, like, mentally, like, they were like, "We're not about to lose nothing." But
Mm,
I still feel like there's something with this team where you have a couple of changes and you just see something completely different. I.e., like when we played, I mean, this is more changes than just a couple, but and play against West Ham in like whatever it was, the Carabao Cup or whatever. It was just like complete blip because
mm,
we didn't have our main people, even though we had quality out there. And
yeah.
so I think it's just I've seen way crappier teams go to the Etihad and put in better performances than Arsenal have with better teams,
Yeah.
in recent times. And so for me, it's more about the mentality aspect of things. And maybe the mentality comes with having a stronger team, but like we have to get to a point where we can be missing some guys and survive. And this season, one thing that we haven't seen is one of our center backs out. I feel like that's like the main thing. We've had changes in fullback, we've had changes up front, we've had changes in midfield. We've been able to deal with that for the most part, but what we haven't seen it. And so I'm hoping with everything that Gabriel is fit, which I feel like he will be, but that's definitely something where like I feel like there's like a mental block there. Now, City might be missing their center back pairing or some of their center backs or whatever, their back line, basically the back line. Um, Walker and Stones out.
Yeah.
How big of a dent is that for them?
Well, I think they're going to be available. If I'm honest, I feel like,
Oh no. Is it
yeah,
mind games?
yeah,
Mind
yeah.
games.
I feel like it is. I feel like it is. I feel like they were told on international duty, if you're
If you
100%
feel
play,
anything.
if you drop to 99%, come off. Don't you know? And I feel like that might have been what it was all about. Um, but well, the Walker I think will be. Stones I think is genuinely 50-50 because he's had injury problems.
Mhm.
Um, if Stones is missing, part of me thinks it's a miss. It's a massive miss because there's no one who can do what he does, which is stepping into midfield the way he does so well.
Mhm.
But then the other part of me is like, when they beat us last season, Stones wasn't doing that. They just had Gundogan and Rodri at the base pulling the strings, and we couldn't deal with almost just this 4-4-2, like long to Haaland or
We
into
were
De
so
Bruyne.
good.
It was just such effective, simple football.
Yeah.
So I don't know, because if Kanji comes in and just has to play as an out and out centre back, like he's a good player, So I don't feel much more confident from that perspective. Like, yeah, Jess, let's just internalize this for a second, okay? We're gonna have to at
We're
some
gonna
point
have to
beat
play.
the real City. Like, we're just gonna have to, because if it's not, it wasn't in the Community Shield when De Bruyne didn't start, and we got a lucky. We did it on pens, and we were good in that game. And it wasn't at the Emirates when De Bruyne and Rodri were out, and we can't like. We're gonna have to beat the real City. We're gonna have to.
Damn it.
I don't think we even have to beat them. I don't think we have to beat them. I think a draw is a good result, if I'm honest. But watch us beat Bayern and then have them in the semis. So they're inevitable. Like, at some point, if we want success, we're gonna have to
We're gonna have to
overcome
do something at the
the
Etihad.
real City and the real Pep Guardiola.
Yeah. So that's so funny. I don't know why. We're gonna have to actually play them, and there's
Yeah.
no excuses really. Um, and I just want to see us like. Here's the thing, because I think we're um, where's that tweet that I saved? I think we're very good. And I think we can go up against them. I think it's going to be one of those tight games because, the Pep Arteta games are all mind games and, real like close and whatever until they score. And then we tend to like away from home fall apart. But this is a tweet from, gosh darn it. Every time I click on it, it goes away. This is a tweet from HTOMUFC. Only Man City have got more Premier League wins than Arsenal against the Big Six since Mikel Arteta's appointment in December of 2019. And they've also got one less point than City against the same Big Six since the start of the season. So, like, we tend to do well in big games until
Massively.
we play against City away from home at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Until then, well, if Mikel Arteta, I think, should be drawing on something when it comes to confidence with his team, and that is that we've actually played. I think it's 5 times we've played our title rivals this season, and yes, I'm counting the Community Shield. And I think all 5 have been good performances. We
Mm,
beat City, deserved to. There wasn't a lot in it, but I think we edged it. We beat Liverpool at the Emirates, definitely deserved to. We drew at Anfield. I thought we were the better team. Like, but to scale, we were the better team. They were at home, they had Anfield, and actually we had control of large parts of that game and started really well. the Emirates Cup. Sorry, not the Emirates FA Cup. The FA Cup. Yeah, we lost to Liverpool. Don't you dare try tell me that they were better than us in that game. They weren't. We should have had 6 in that game.
Yeah.
And then the Community Shield, again, I think we slightly edged it. I think all 5 games, like the performances have been good. I think the players got to look at that and go, these teams, you haven't always picked up the wins or the results in 90 minutes or whatever, but these teams haven't outplayed you at all this season, not once. Like that's got to be massive for the
Has
players'
to.
confidence going into this game. It has to be.
It has to be. And I agree. By the way, there's 350 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys are smashing the likes, all that kind of stuff. Also want to read out the super chat that we got from Jack Lee. Thank you so much. Jack Lee says, I am so confident we are going to win. Come on, you Gunners. I need that little bit of that confidence because, child, I am shaking in my boots already. So here's the thing. One thing that I always notice when we play against City and Liverpool to a certain extent, maybe not so
Mm,
much this season, is that we tend to look a little toothless when it
mm,
comes to like the final third. Like we're struggling. Sometimes that's because like when we played them at home last season and Kedia was up front, and I don't
yeah.
think Jesus was fully fit. But I do find us to be a little bit lacking when it comes to like creating clear cut chances. And like at home when we played them, we scraped it, but we didn't have a lot of chances. Who would you start up front in order to maximize? I mean, obviously, you're going to start Saka, and if Martinelli is fit, you're going to start Martinelli. But the big question, I guess, is Jesus. Is he fit enough? Would you start him? Is he in your best 11 still? Or are you starting Kai Havertz, a player that tends to show up in the big games, but I still see people calling him a bum. And I'm just like, is he a bum? I don't think so. He's not playing like a bum. He's scoring
No,
loads of
not.
goals. So what do you think?
So Kai Havertz gets the nod for me. Um, when Jesus is at his best, same with when Zinchenko's at his best, same when with Thomas Partey at his best, they really transform the team. Really, it's the football we play. Like they are so good at getting us just balling out, playing some great football. I don't think this is going to be that kind of affair. I think if we had 65% possession or whatever, I'd say, yeah, get your best players that can just make some magic happen. But I think we're going to need to have a really good, concentrated defensive shape. We're going to need to nullify them before we do anything ourselves. Kai Havertz, I think, will work incredibly hard. I think he'll be an outball for us. And then we're going to want to go long at times just to ask different questions, to try pick up second balls. I think I saw a graphic doing the rounds that we are the best at picking up second balls in the league by like a country mile. Like, and who the hell is calculating that stat? But thank you. Like, it's a brilliant stat. It's true. So often football, the possession, the ball isn't really in control of a team. There's that they win a header, then they win the second ball, then a tackle goes in, and then it's bobbling between players. It's pinball in there. Can you take control of those situations? I think we might have to do a little bit of that against Man City because we really want to force them back. Pep Guardiola in the last few years has moved towards being a little bit more pragmatic. And I want to call his bluff. I want to try and like push him into doing that more. And I think Kai Havertz, like just for his aerial ability to go long, see if we can force them back a little bit, I think would be good for that. I also think, I don't know, I think with Jesus is always that you're playing away at your former club, go prove something. I think with Kai Havertz, there's just no nonsense. Now, I'm not saying Jesus would play it in a nonsensical way. I just think Havertz, there's less fuss. And I think we want to go into this making less fuss. We want to go into, like it's another game, be up for it, be concentrated, and not sort of get really amped up and really like, this is the day we win the title. It's not, because even if you win, there's still so much to do. So
Of
we need to
course.
treat it as normally as possible, in my opinion. I think Kai Havertz gets us closer to that.
I agree. I definitely feel as though like we need to have an out ball. We need to have somebody we can hit long that's going to hold it up and work hard. Not that Jesus doesn't do that, but there's a difference, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, and he tends to show up with something in the final third, like on the big games. So I'm hoping that that happens again. And these are the games, honestly, where I truly expect the likes of Odegaard and Saka, if fit, to show why they're our main guys. I think Odegaard, dispelled some of the myth that he doesn't show up in big games like against Porto because he was one of the main people that were alive. But I think that
Yeah.
was one of Saka's worst games. And I know he's been carrying a little bit of an injury, but these are the ones. These are the ones. These are the ones where, we're always talking about like when KDB did this against so and so, and when, Salah did this against so and so. Like, we need those moments from now until the end of the season. I feel like we don't have enough moments sometimes when it comes down to it, and we definitely need them from
I,
those two.
I think there's a lot of pressure on the front three in this game. I think it could be very easy for the game to just go by them and us to say, yeah, well, we never got control and City had the ball and they couldn't get in the game. And look how hard they had to work back just to track back. They could. I wouldn't really be making too many excuses for them in this game. Obviously, you watch the 90 and then you see how it pans out. But I've seen teams, even in games that City have won 3 or 4 by 3 or 4 goals, I've seen teams create openings and pull that defense out of place and make them work hard. I'll be really disappointed if we don't do the same. We've got as dynamic, as silky a front three as any. I really believe like Saka and Martinez pacing behind. They've got really good first touches. They've got really good ball control. They can run with and without the ball to terrorize defenses. I'll be really annoyed if we go through it, and whether Martinez fit or not, whoever we go with out on the left, if they haven't just made that City defense twist and turn a little bit and
Yeah.
and and squirm and go out of possession and miss a tackle or anything, because they've got the talent to do that. And like I said, I've seen worse teams. Man United, got battered by City. Like, let's have it right. It could have been 5-6-1. But I also think a better team does a lot more with the openings that United created in that game. They combined a few passes and suddenly there's a run for Rashford. There's a run for Garnacho, whoever it might be. And I think we're good enough to fashion those opportunities, but we need to put them to the sword. I'll be really annoyed if I see Saka, Martinelli, Trossard, Havertz, Jesus, and Ketty, whoever it is, just totally squandering opportunities because they
I
just
agree.
lack composure.
Yeah, and I'd be disappointed if we went there and didn't create anything. I feel like sometimes we do the defensive part, we do the midfield part, and then when it comes to
Yeah.
like pass before the pass and creating those real chances, we just flatter to deceive. And I don't know if it's just because like the moment or whatever, but we have to be beyond that now. Like, we need to be creating, like, we're not going to create a lot against them because we're not going to get into the basketball game. I feel like that's the only way that you're going to create loads of chances or a lot of chances against City at the Etihad is if
Yeah.
you engage in the basketball. We probably won't do that. But if we end the game and it's like, yeah, but what chances did we have?
Yeah.
It was a fail. It was a fail. We shouldn't be there anymore, you know?
Mhm.
Um
Yeah, and
s-
it's not also, and sorry, Jess, it's like, and there's also a fine line between like, try not to contradict myself because I do feel like there is a difference. If it's a cagey affair that ends 1-1, 2-2, even 0-0, that's one thing. I think it's just if I see a team that had 3 or 4 good openings and only got a shot on target from one of them, I'll be like, no, come on. Like, when those opportunities open, you've got to take them. And City will, defend well on their part, and they'll try and keep us away from goal and control the game in their own way. But I just, when those opportunities come, which I think they will, it's be brave and attack and sprint and put your foot through it and really like do everything with that word conviction we talked about with Kai Havertz. Do everything with conviction, and City will start to go, oh, they're looking a bit on it. You can always sense when a team is tentative, and I felt we went there last season. Before we went 1-0 down to De Bruyne and then we were trying to get back in the game, everything was just a bit tentative. I didn't really believe us. And we need to make them believe that we can really hurt them.
The 4-1 is just every
Oh,
time I think about the 4-1, I think about holding winking. I'm just like, I cannot. Like, watching
the,
behind the couch, I could not believe what I was watching. I was like,
because we were so poor on the day, he got away with that. Like, that was one of the most shameless things. You've just been bullied by Erling Haaland. And then he took the piss because then he like let his hair down and buried another. He was basically like, I'm off. I'm done. Game finished. Like,
it was
and then
crazy.
scored again. I was
Yeah,
just like, honestly, that was shameful. But
it really
yeah,
was. Like, honestly, like, I don't ever wanna see anything like that again, and, like, I
no,
expect us to truly, um, compete and get something. That is my expectation. Like you said, I don't think we have to have the win, but do not go there and get slapped. Absolutely not. Um, do you foresee any lineup changes or any surprises, or do you think
No,
beyond maybe Martinelli not being fit enough to start and Trossard coming in, like it'll be the same vibes that we've been going with?
I
No
think
surprise.
Arteta's somewhere, you know, tearing his hair out about whether Tomiyasu should come in. I think he always had Tomiyasu in mind for these kinds of games.
Yeah.
And I almost think he'd rather be told Tomiyasu's not fit because then he doesn't have a decision to make. I think now he's like, do I really overlook Kiwior, who's done so well, for Tomiyasu, who now let me say this about Tomiyasu. I was saying he's a bit like what I said about Thomas Partey, but he's not. But anyway, Tomiyasu when at his best, I genuinely think he can take on any winger in the world. He can defend, stand upright, take him in a foot race, have a good one-on-one duel, win his headers. But I've seen him get cooked when he's not 100% at it, Tomiyasu, when he's not really match fit. Jordan
Yeah.
Ayew did a job on him at the beginning of the season. Like,
When we played City at home, when he
yeah,
came
yeah.
in on the right.
He's a young player, Tomiyasu. That is also forgotten. Like, he's only like 24, I think. Maybe just turning 25. Like he's not, I think we look at him as some really experienced player because we've had him for ages. He's still not really, and he's obviously struggling to prove his fitness. So I think there will be a temptation there. I think there'll be a temptation to do something clever with the midfield, like get legs in there. So maybe go for Erdegaard, Rice, Havertz, and then Jesus up top. He might go for Partey, but I'll just stick with Jorginho because it's Jorginho's got it up here for me. He just has the experience and the know-how and the calm. And I think players like really look to him. I don't know why. I get the impression on the pitch like they really listen to someone like him. And I
Yeah,
would want him
agree.
out there in the wars with me if I were a player. The way he's been playing at the moment, for sure.
I totally agree with that. I'm afraid about dropping anybody in that hasn't played consistently in recent
Yeah,
like weeks because they just tend to take a minute. Like we saw Zinchenko came in against Porto, and I was like, oh no, like it was like the worst cameo I've ever seen. Um,
disaster class.
yeah, it
Looked
really
awful.
was. It was so
And I
bad.
love
Like
I love Zinchenko, but he was
same.
poor.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was. So Jorginho, expecting him to start. Kiwior, I'm expecting him to start. And the thing about Kiwior that I will say is that as good as their players are, I'm not that afraid of him getting the cookage because it's like they don't have anybody on that side that's like particularly like the Doku will be on the other side probably, and
Mm.
I expect Ben to get cooked at least once. That's just the truth. So I'm not that worried about it as long as we're covering. Hopefully our players are back to like some level of fitness. We have a decent bench that could make a difference. Maybe Partey can make a difference off the bench, Jesus, whatever. And hopefully we get something. What is your prediction?
1-1. But I'm weirdly confident going into this game. And the way I always describe it when I say a draw, because that's obviously very sitting on the fence, but I always describe it as this. Let me land people. If there were a button in front of me that said press this and it's a point, don't have to play the game, it's a draw. I wouldn't press it. Now I'd be happy with a draw at the end of the game. But what I'm saying is I would want to play it because I think we can win. Like I think we can. I don't think we will, but I think it's possible, and I'd want to chance it. That's kind of hopefully giving you an idea of where my confidence level is with this. I wouldn't just take a draw right now. I want to see how this happens. And you know what? You asked me a year ago, even asked me a couple of years ago, I'd have been like, "Yep, take that draw right now, get me out of here." But not now. I want to see how we compete in this.
Yeah, I'm not quite there. If
Fair
I
enough.
could just be done and just go with the draw, I'd probably
Would
take
you
it.
would you press the button?
Yeah, I probably
Bam.
would. I'm
Draw.
scared.
1-1.
Like, I'm not gonna lie. I just feel like I'm traumatized. Like next season,
Sure.
I won't be afraid to go to Anfield because we've went there and done well. I need to see us do it at the Etihad, but I think it's gonna be a close one. Like you said, I would probably go with a 1-1 as well. I think our defense is stout enough where we won't concede that much, but I also think we won't have enough firepower to really do enough damage, unfortunately. Um, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. But you guys, I know this was like kind of a quick one, and there's 420 of you guys in here, so I'm like, I wish we
Oh,
could keep
thank you all.
going. But I'm actually going to be doing an Instagram live with my friend Julia, who is a Man City fan. So if you guys don't follow me on Instagram, you guys should. It's Instagram.com, whatever. My @ is Jessica Black TV. So we'll actually be live in 10 minutes or so, and you can hear a City fan talk about it because we've never seen one before live in the flesh, so we've found one. No, but she's great. James, let everybody know where they can follow you and all that kind of stuff. What do you have going on?
Thank you. The challenge is called James B. The chat's called James Gooniverse, which is based on a project I once did. But anyway, more about that in the future.
Yeah.
And I'm obviously on AFTV and loving everything I'm doing there. Forever Arsenal podcast. You'll have seen Jess on it as well. So yeah, I'm just making content to try and distract myself from the stress of the title race. It's my way. It's my project. It's my way of like handling it. Like, the title race is real. The Champions League, the quarterfinals, it's all very real now, and I'm enjoying just making content around it all because the community, Arsenal fans online, they're loving it right now, which is great. But it's also my way. It's my coping mechanism. um,
I get
so,
you.
yeah, then we all get it. So we just got to talk about it because it's like, oh my word. But yeah, thank you all for joining. I do appreciate it. Loads of comments coming in, and thanks for having me again, Jess. It's always good. So I always enjoy coming on here because, like, I hadn't stopped and thought about these players you mentioned at the start of the stream and how our minds have changed massively on them. I mean, I had thought about it, but not in like a wow. A lot of players are changing minds, like, and have done in a very short space of time. As I always love sort of tackling these different topics from different angles. So thanks for having me on.
Of course. Thank you so much. And obviously, we'll have you back. And you guys, make sure you guys subscribe to his channel, get on AFTV, subscribe to them if you're not already subscribed, so you guys can watch all the content that James does on there. And you guys, I'll be doing a watch along. I'll give you guys information on that for the game. And then after the game, I'll be doing a stream with Bleacher Report, and then I'll come talk to you guys. So we'll get the schedule out there, don't worry. And like, subscribe, set notifications, all that kind of stuff, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.